approval. It cost me $50 for my lawyer.
How are you doing?
Good. Really good.
There you go. Sounds like an ad.
It does.
They can use a plain one. And so I got a bunch of that if they come back.
Oh, here's Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. It's 9 o'clock. I'm going to call the meeting. Roll call.
Back door first, now to the side door.
Tony, you got a name tag for you.
We'll bring it over there. Somebody now.
Good morning. Who's Ross? Bob Jones.
Here.
Dara. Has proper notice been given?
Yes, it has.
Next is staff introductions. I don't know, do we want to go around and introduce each other, especially for the new people?
I'm Andy Oshbach. I'm the director of the Land and Water Management Department. I think I know everyone here. I had a chance to meet you at the county board meeting. Do you want me to give a little background about our office, or? Sure. Well, just in a real quick Reader's Digest version, we work with a lot of water quality type projects. We work with the agricultural community on soil health, try to prevent runoff and so on from getting into our water bodies. We administer the county shoreline and floodplain zoning ordinance. We also administer the county sanitation ordinance. We have all the septic designs come into our office and we approve those and issue the permits. We follow up on the inspections and so on. We work on a farmland preservation program, wildlife damage abatement program. We're involved in a FEMA community CRS program where we buy properties in the floodplain and take those structures out. That's kind of it in a nutshell. I think as we work together, we'll learn more about some of the other items. Look forward to working with you all.
Presume we're going around the table. I'm Ron Boyd. I'm the Register of Deeds. I have an office of 5 3/4. At one time it was 7. This is Diana Lewis, who's the GIS coordinator for the office. And I'll give you a little bit more, but I'm also giving you a written overview of our office. So as you can see from the list here that we have 2 primary divisions in my office. Register of Deeds office, and I'm not going to give you all the information that's there. You can read it yourself. But I probably have some of your records in my office, especially if you were born or if you died here. And then the other section of my office.
You know something you don't know, Ron?
Yes.
This whole simulation thing, is that real?
The Land Information Office, who Diane is in charge of. As Andy alluded to, I'm sure you'll get understand more of what this office is all about. You're also always welcome to my office. It's a very public office. I'm more than happy to give you individually or group tours of the exciting office and Register of Deeds and Land Information. If you have any other questions, you can find me and ask.
Hi, I'm Karina Ward. I am representing the UW-Madison Division of Extension Office. We are just across the hallway. We're a pretty small office. Myself, I'm the Community Development Educator. We have Dana Hint, who is our 4-H Positive Youth Development Educator. We have Steph Plaster, who's part of our Regional Agriculture Program. And then we have our 2 support staff. You have probably all met Cindy Sarkady. She is our Area Extension Director. We are organized in a 4-county region, so she oversees our 4 counties. She sends her regrets she was not able to be here today. We do a lot of different things out of our office. Hopefully you're all familiar with 4-H and all the different programming that they do. Within community development, I work a lot with our local nonprofits. I also work with some of our economic development officials. I work with our tourism groups, our chambers, just kind of a real wide variety of things. And you'll get to know a lot more about us. Each month, a different one of our educators comes and tells you a bit about our programming, so you guys can learn more about what we're doing. And you're always welcome to stop by. Like I said, our office is just right across the hallway. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Andrew Struck. I'm the director of the Planning and Parks Department. Welcome and congratulations to those of you that are new and those that are returning. So our department is broken up into a number of different divisions. On page 79 and 80 in your packets, you'll see this. This is kind of a monthly manager report that we do, and it does really outline the kind of the highlights, the major divisions that fall under the department. So one being the planning division. This morning, actually, we're going to be talking about a land division. So that's something that is through our department. We review certain land divisions within the county, and that will come before you. And then we also do long-range planning. So that would be the comprehensive plan, the farmland preservation plan, and the park and open space plan. We do a number of GIS functions within our department as well, and work very closely with land and water and also land information on those functions. A lot of our GIS layers are the natural resource layers that we either create or maintain. Obviously, our Parks, Recreation, and Culture Division. So we have about 13. We have 13 county parks, about 1,000 acres that we own and manage. In addition to that, we do have some, cultural aspects to the parks. We work very closely with a number of nonprofits, one being the Ozaukee County Historical Society. They manage and own the buildings at Pioneer Village, but Pioneer Village is actually part of Hawthorne Hills County Park. And we have a lease agreement with the Historical Society for that. So we do a lot with other nonprofits. Another one of the divisions in our department is for tourism. We work very closely with the Ozaukee County Tourism Council, particularly as it relates to some of the functions in our department, promoting the interim trail, the parks, some of the things that are countywide assets that people enjoy to visit. Also our trails division. So in the trail division, we manage and coordinate with all the municipalities on the Ozaukee interim trail, 30-mile trail through the county. We'll be talking more about that, as well as we work with all the snowmobile clubs in the county to manage the snowmobile trails throughout the county. And there are a number of clubs that actually do the on-the-ground work. We're kind of the administrative arm to support that work, and also to see distribute the grant funds to the DNR for that. We have our golf course division. So we have two 18-hole professional golf courses at Mequon and Hawthorne Hills on the south side and north side of the county. A lot of our staff is obviously for the golf course operation. And just real quickly, that operates as an enterprise fund, which really we're trying to function as a business model. And so that the operations for the golf course are not on the county levy or the tax levy. And then lastly, we have our Ecological Division, which is a number of different areas. One of the main areas is our fish passage program and the work that we've done on stream restoration, water quality, and habitat improvements throughout the county, as well as infrastructure improvements. Actually, yesterday we were working on a culvert replacement in the town of Saukville with the town of Saukville. So we do a lot of projects through our fish passage program, but our ecological division is more than that. So a lot of it is dealing with invasive species. We have a conservation corps group out this morning actually working on some invasive species removal. We also do a lot of tree planting to replace those trees that we lost, particularly through emerald ash borer. So we do a lot of tree planting, a lot of restoration work, both on public and private property. A lot of it's focused in our county park areas, but we do work in a number of areas, including some private lands as well. So I think that's the brief overview, and I'm glad to welcome any of you to our department too. And if you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm glad to answer anything that you might have questions about or want more information on. So look forward to working with all of you again.
You guys want, should we give a brief introduction to each of us? Bruce, you wanna?
Sure. Bruce Ross, represent Northwest Mequon. Been on the board, this is my third session. Each prior session, I've been on the Natural Resources Committee. My personal background, I spent a long time in the Coast Guard, moving around the country, 30 years. Settled in Mequon, along the Ozaukee River. Currently the executive director for the Wisconsin Waterfowl Association, so that's a statewide membership organization, 7,000 members. So we do habitat restoration, advocacy for waterfowl, hunters, and wetlands, and education work as well. So the connection between what I do in my day job versus what I do here is.
Hi, I'm Barb Jokes, District 3, which is basically the northwest corner of Ozaukee County. I've got 2 wards in the township of Fredonia. I've got all of the town of Sackville, a little bit of Newburgh, and a little bit of the village of Sackville. So quite a big area, which also includes Hawthorne Hills and Tyner Village and River Edge and much of the bog. So I got many acres of recreational type land. Myself, I was in municipal government all my life, born and raised in Ozaukee County. My last 10 years before I retired, I was the municipal clerk for the village of Bayside. So I have my CMC and NMC. I also worked for Grafton once upon a time, worked for Thiensville once upon a time. So I know the community and the county quite well. And I really like the natural resources end of it because I border Hawthorne Hills. If you call, number 15 is like 300 feet off my living room window, and also borders the Milwaukee River. So I've got a real close-up view of everything out there. And I like the country, and I like all of that as far as living in Ozaukee County. So I'm a real advocate for this, basically this committee. I've served 10 years and just got my 10 years. I was on the Public Works Committee, and I've been on Natural Resources. I served as I am vice chair here, and I served for chair when our last chair resigned. So I, hoping that we would get another person from the committee, which we got Todd, because the continuity of all that really is important to this committee. So I welcome both of you, and I'm real enthused about what we're doing here in Ozaukee County as far as natural resources. That all continues.
Can I give a brief introduction?
Sure, I'll go, just keep it going.
Tony Matera, a lifelong resident of Washington, District 7. I work right across the street, which can be a blessing and a curse because I think I got enough time to get over here and then overdose a lot. So again, sorry for that. My professional background working at ANSA, I specialize in working with municipalities, public entities, school districts, municipality in their risk management program, liability work on property, that nature. Was excited, I really didn't have a preference. I was just excited to jump into any committee and all my things. Very fortunate that they put me on here because my family does take advantage of all the great trails and hike. We love to be hikers and spend all the weekends out of line. I am a golfer out in Hawthorne, and so and with a lot of things going on in particular right now in the news and whatnot, this is going to be a really exciting committee. So I'm glad to be a part of it. I'm very glad to hear. Again, I'm just a chameleon right now, just trying to soak it all up. So glad to hear we have some professional expertise and a long time background and passion in this committee. So definitely got the ship's going in the right direction. I'm glad to be on. So thank you.
I'm Kurt Shesso, basically the southwest part of Mequon. We kind of spear between Freistadt and Mequon Road to Thiensville limits or to the river. And And basically, I retired from the city of Mequon. I worked there 26 years in the Public Works Department. And I've been farming all my life, currently farming about 400 acres. And my wife and I own a sign company, and I sell lost files. Besides, a lot of interest always in keeping the environment and farmland and stuff in good condition. We don't want erosion and things like that. So I'm looking forward to being on this committee. Thanks.
And I'm Rob Holyoke, and I've been on this committee 4 years. Bruce and I came on board at the same time.
I'm the oldest.
Yeah.
But this is what well, keep saying this is my sixth term, so I don't know if I'll be here another term after this. I'm just hoping to make it through. The Chesso name, I recognize a lot from 4-H. In my younger years, we spent a lot of time in that, so my background there too is quite extensive. And your Dan Becker's was the place you took, okay? Just trying to get this,
Yeah.
where you.
I'm one of the girls who live on the corner of Walters and Milwaukee. Let me take Walters right down into Stock Creek.
I think this is a good mix as far as area in Ozaukee County. We're covering all that. And me being the older, getting new people, getting enthusiastic that these two stayed because you have to grow on one base. And now we got new blood here to work with, so that in case I'm gone the next time, then somebody else can come in and keep growing. But Ozaukee County, I just can't back it. It's just enormously ahead of most other areas.
So I represent Deansville. I'm also a Deansville trustee. I've been doing that for like 25 years. And I think it's great that, like Barb said, we have three people that have been on here. We've got a farmer and an avid golfer, you were telling me, so I think that's great. So I know Don Kornick, who was the chair at the start of the last session. We've had some long meetings in the past. 4 years ago, it wasn't uncommon to run 3 and 3.5 hours. So I think we should try to keep these meetings around 2 hours. That's what I would like to do. It's 3, I think it's pretty long. We've jumped around starting times. I'm fine with 9. I kind of like 9. I know you like 9.
Definitely.
We've done 8, we've done 8:30. I don't know what everybody's preference is, but whatever the majority wants, I was staying with 9 o'clock. You guys have any thoughts on this?
I don't, I'm supportive of 9.
I don't want to be conflicting, but earlier the better. That's usually with me, because I got things to do.
Okay.
But I mean, I can live with 9.
All right. Let's stay with 9 right now.
Yeah, it works.
Okay. Were there any public comments, correspondence, or communications? Okay.
No, I maybe should mention, I called Mark Hilgendorf this morning,
Okay.
just to verify. Mark was one of our committee members in the past. He mentioned that he was officially resigning.
Okay.
So I know that, I understand it came up at county board
Right.
yesterday.
Right.
And I purposely called him just to confirm that. And he said, yes, he's resigned.
Question on that.
He's
Andy.
resigned, or
Did
he
he
is?
actually resign? I mean, did he tell some, it sounded yesterday at county board as though he had told someone, and we didn't know this. I don't think any of you knew this. I didn't.
No,
And
I-
we're not the ones that appoint him, correct?
Oh, no.
No.
Yeah, he would resign to the Farm Service
Did
Agency.
he didn't resign to county, he resigned. to-
Well, he's not our, remember, he's not a county appointee. He's appointed by the FSA, not the federal one.
No, I did not ask him if he resigned from FSA. He mentioned that he resigned from.
As it was made very clear to us.
And he had mentioned to me like 3 months ago that, he was a little disgruntled. He mentioned that he may resign, but I had never heard anything more regarding that.
So I really think it's just up to the FSA to,
So someone will be
We have to reach out
reappointed
to
from
the
their
FSA
group.
and say, are you gonna give us some
I guess we
information?
can do that, but yeah, it's really incumbent on them to make the.
Don't you need them to vote on agricultural items?
Yes. Well, they don't have to vote, but they're a member.
As long as we have quorum of committee, we're okay.
they're given an opportunity, and there's a state requirement for an FSA representative. But they don't show up.
I mean, my understanding is when they're on the committee or whatever, you don't allow them to vote on those particular items. I guess there's only 2 counties in the state of Wisconsin. I mean, I don't have this for fact, but this is what I was told, that don't allow their FSA representative to have a vote in those.
They have a vote on farm-related issues.
Yeah. I don't know, that's
It's
just,
on other things that they can't vote on.
right. That was, I'm friends with him, so I mean, that's what I got out of him, so I actually.
Well, he's not an elected official, and he's,
Right.
like golf courses and stuff, he really doesn't have any.
Yeah, or something in University Extension Department, they get
On things relating to fire.
register of deeds.
Okay.
We're a little different than a lot of counties. A lot of counties have their own agricultural committee. Obviously, we have, that's part of this larger natural resources committee, so we try to, you know, instead of having 4 or 5, you know, instead of having a register of deeds committee and a land and water committee and an extension committee and a parks committee, we combine them all into one committee. So I think that's always been part of our attempt at efficiency has created some ambiguity in where the sort of the FSA piece fits in. But those items, and I don't know if there's anything on the agenda today that would fall under the, but they're usually marked on the agenda with an asterisk. Yep. Yeah, we make sure to make that very clear.
Where that person can vote on those issues. There's nothing on today for him. And so some months.
Sure. No, I'm just getting clarification because that's what he brought up to me, so.
So Jason, is it on us to contact the FSA and let them know that there's?
Yeah, I think Andy can contact them.
Yeah, I'll be glad to contact you.
But number one, find out if he has actually, because I think he would have to submit his resignation to them, not to us. And then they would have to let us know, and then they would have to reappoint.
I'll follow up with the FSA director.
I know like Tom Winker said he had like suggestion for some farmer that is active in that FSA. And, you know, since Kurt is a Freistadt Mequon guy, you know, it's probably good to have a farmer from northern Ozaukee County or something like that. In a way of
Yeah, I think that's up to that's up to the FSA, right? Yeah.
yeah. All right, thanks. I need approval of the minutes for April 7th.
I make that motion.
Motion by Barb, seconded by Bruce. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Register of deeds. You're up again, Ryan.
Okay, I'll be able to expedite most of your meetings, so I don't feel I need to be necessarily here all the time. I'll have a monthly report for you to review. I'm always upstairs when you're meeting, so you can always call me in if you do have questions on it. Land Information Office is going to do a presentation probably within the next about 4 months, so you'll get a better idea what that office is all about. But if you have any questions about our report, I'll be more than happy to answer it.
The one question I have is about the indexing, how that moving along, how much longer do you think that's going to be?
So yeah, the indexing is moving along real good. We made up 12 years in 3 weeks. The issue is getting to be that about 1890 and back is all script that they have to discern the index or the characters that are trying to be written there. So that might slow that up, but I think until we get up to about 1890, we'll be moving through pretty fast. And also what's sort of nice is that there's not a whole lot of records that are before 1890. But I could venture a guess that we'll be done within a year, but I don't know for sure. I would hope that we are. But all the records are indexed except probate records, but we're going after those too. And those are old records too. So the records that are usually hit most for researchers are probably within the last 100 years. Did that actually?
Yeah, you did, thank you.
So maybe for the 2 new members, we've set aside some money 2 or 3 years ago to digitize all the paper records.
Yeah.
The remaining paper records in
Yes,
the
right.
in the registry.
Yeah, we've been capturing the records since 2006 in a digital environment. And currently, we're about 88% e-recording, so we don't even need to convert it. It hits my office as a digital record. So that expedites a lot of things. That's the reason why my staff has gotten a little less over the years.
And the indexing allows.
Yeah, obviously, having all those records digitized still makes it difficult to find if you don't have an index. As I alluded to in my report I just gave you, we've got over 1 million records in real estate, so you don't want to sift through those hand by hand. And I'm more than happy to show you how the operations work. Yep.
All right, thanks.
Thank you much.
All right, next, we're looking for a volunteer to serve on the Energy Action Commission. I don't know if someone could give a definition of exactly what that is, or.
So that's our internal staff committee, and then it has a representative from, we have representatives from Focus on Energy and other firms in the area that work in energy initiatives, and their goal is to help the county be more energy efficient. They meet maybe quarterly, 2 or 3 times a year. We do it because it's not a committee. We allow Zoom attendance at one. It's not a committee of the county board. So that's what it is. Generally, meetings are about an hour. And, I know there will be one coming up to review our energy portfolio. So we track obviously the energy usage in every county facility, and obviously we made some investments in energy efficient technology throughout the year. So we like to make sure that we're getting a return on investment there. I know there'll be a discussion about whether or not we could potentially put some solar panels on some of the county buildings to decrease our energy costs. So.
Anybody willing to step forward and volunteer?
We'll jump at it at once. It comes with a $300 per meeting stipend.
What if nobody volunteers? What happens?
We'll meet without one of you. I guess that's what, yeah.
Right now, I really don't want to. It's like I've got a lot of stuff on my plate as far as. But.
I'm still trying to figure out my responsibilities this one.
I suppose that sometime somebody else could step up, right? Is that what?
Yeah, or we could take a member from outside of I will look at the policy. I don't know if it necessarily requires. We've always liked a member of this committee because of
I believe they need one from natural resources as well as public works. But like you said, I guess we could go without it.
yeah, or we could change our policy. We'll discuss.
Then we need a volunteer to serve on the Land Preservation Board. Anybody? Do you have any interest in that since you're
What's that involved?
Well, it's a committee, frankly, the Land Preservation Board has not met in many, many years. So I know Andrew has had intentions. Andrew has had intentions of having that committee meet, I think over the last couple of years, but they haven't done that. So the goal, and it's unfortunate he's left, but I would say the goal is to work through some of the land preservation planning efforts with in the county. So
Do you anticipate them meeting? I served on, way back before I was a county supervisor, on some things related to land preservation. So I have a little bit of background in that when I was town chairman of Saco. My thing is, I don't want to commit to something that meets every month.
What Andrew told me yesterday was that, again, they haven't had a long time. As he does want to restart it with the idea of meeting quarterly.
I know I'm on the Ozaukee and Urban Trail Advisory Committee. I've been on that 3 years. We haven't met once. So maybe this kind of sounds familiar to this committee possibly.
Do they have an actual meeting date, the second Thursday or something?
No.
Nothing? No.
So are they more interested in preserving wetlands or, I mean, which would end up with Andy's about over there?
I think a lot of it is looking at park and open space land, preservation of agricultural land. There was some talk about like with the agricultural land preservation to have some farmers involved and see if there's a will or an interest in preserving certain blocks of land possibly in the future for farmland, at least to zoom in and see if there's opportunities there.
I mean, you're in kind of in a high political touchy thing, you know, with people's land and whatever, you know.
Right.
This goes back to the.
I think Mr. Struck is joining us again here, so.
Together. Right.
And could you give a description about the Land Preservation Board? I'm trying to figure out if somebody wants to.
Sure. If I can just interrupt for 1 second. I mentioned that we have a land division coming up under the agenda under planning, and the Brays are here to speak to that. So I also wanted to just see if we could get them, get their comments on the record prior to getting to that agenda item so that they can also get on with their day. So with that said, though, I can just give a brief update on the Land Preservation Board. So Land Preservation Board was a function of a couple of things. When we started doing our comprehensive plan for the first time, a very large effort, and we had a number of citizen advisory committees, one for agriculture and natural resources, one for transportation, et cetera, et cetera. We had many citizen advisory committees. And then we did a similar thing, kind of the first major update of our park and open space plan. We had some citizen advisory committees set up for that. Going forward, we kind of consolidated. So one of the ideas is that the Land Preservation Board was kind of, we have that citizen representation for some of the long range planning. But it is different in comparison to the Comprehensive Planning Board, in that Land Preservation Board also kind of takes up, it takes up these long range plans. So Farmland Preservation Plan, Park and Open Space Plan, Comprehensive Planning Board, and it's a combination of both supervisors and citizens. And it's very specific as to kind of that representation. We have agricultural representation, we have natural resource representation. And you heard yesterday, the chairman talked about the three board member appointments that they're on the Land Preservation Board. So what I was trying to say is that Land Preservation Board kind of took the role of our citizen kind of advisory committees, if you will, for those long range plans, park and open space, farmland preservation, and comprehensive planning. But the difference between that, and if you have any interest in the Comprehensive Planning Board, is Land Preservation Board also takes up kind of implementation phases of those topics. So, we talked about in the Land Preservation Board actually set up a fund that would, be set aside for land preservation efforts. There's specific discussion on other models of agricultural preservation, easements, things like that, stuff that Andy's been very active in working on. So the Land Preservation Board also will take up some of these implementation aspects of these long range plans, whereas Comprehensive Planning Board largely just deals with the planning aspect of that. So they take up the same long range plans. The Land Preservation Board is a citizen advisory committee, essentially, so it's advisory, and that goes to the Comprehensive Planning Board. So those recommendations or advisory recommendations go to the Comprehensive Planning Board for those plans, but then they have that implementation aspect. And the last thing I'll just say quickly is one of the last things the Land Preservation Board did, we haven't met for a while, by the way, but one of the last things the Land Preservation Board did is adopted and took on kind of forestry aspect. So we had our DNR urban forestry grant. And so they function as our forestry kind of advisory board as well. So helping us guide some of our forestry restoration efforts in the county. that was one of the last actions that the Land Preservation Board took. So I hope that helps a little bit. I can't off the top of my head tell you the exact appointments, but like I said, there's 2 from agriculture, 1 natural resources, the three board members, 1 from NRC, 1 from comp planning, and then 1 at large.
When do you set the meetings?
Yeah, so very good
Are
question.
they evening, so you get more citizens involved, or?
Yeah, very good question. So it largely is up to the chair when we've done that. So in the past, Land Preservation Board has met in the morning, but it wouldn't have to. It could certainly meet in the evening. All of them are public meetings. So again, if we have something specifically for public input, we oftentimes will schedule public meetings, particularly if there's a desire to get citizen input on some aspect. But largely up to the chair. So Land Preservation Board has met in the morning. Historically, they were meeting every other month. So it was every other month, 6 times a year, if you will. And the Comprehensive Planning Board was the same. The Comprehensive Planning Board did largely meet during the day as well, usually in the afternoons. But again, that was historic based on the chair at the time, and that could be changed. As far as meeting time. Historically, the chair for Land Preservation Board was Jennifer Rostein. She was one of the board members, and it wouldn't necessarily have to be a board member that is chair of Land Preservation Board. Could be a citizen rep, but
Paul Melitek was interested in this. Do we need somebody from the NRC if there's another board member?
we do. We need a specific appointment from the NRC. We need a specific appointment from somebody that will be sitting in Comprehensive Planning Board, whoever that might be, and then 1 at-large board member. So that could be Paul, or if Paul also was on the Comprehensive Planning Board, he could take that role.
I'd be willing to serve on that. But if you don't want to do it, Kurt,
If I knew it was an evening meeting, I'd be more apt to do it. 'Cause it's just cuts into business time.
I thought of you because
No,
you kind of are preserving land.
Yeah.
You're keeping.
no, I do have interest. It's just a matter of, how many mornings and stuff I can give up.
so, well, we have to form one in order to
form
come
one.
up with
Usually the-
a chicken and an egg situation.
It is a little bit. Usually the chair sets it, so I was just telling you what history is, but
New chair.
it could very well be. I will say one last thing. I mean, we haven't done this. I guess I'd have to run it by court counsel because you are also a board member. But obviously, we have farmer citizen representatives that we're also hoping to have for Land Preservation Board. And I know we're working on that. I talked to Andy a little bit, but that might be a niche also. I don't know because you're also a board member, but I'm just throwing it out there.
Well, I'll defer to Kurt in my volunteering, but if that works with your schedule.
Yeah, because, we can try it. I mean, it's.
All right, well, we'll have Kurt Chesto serve on the land. Do we have to vote on that? Is that? Jason, do we have to vote?
No, the board will vote on it.
Yeah. Case recognition.
Yeah.
All right, so with the permission of the committee, can we move ahead to, what would that be, item 11A?
We don't have to do the whole land preservation. If you want to take the phrase public comment, we can certainly do that. It's up to you. I apologize. I was just getting to meet them. Thank you.
I'd certainly be willing to do that whole item forward.
Okay, all right.
Mhm.
So would you like to come up here or something and explain your land division? Or would you like me to stand anywhere?
You have to see it there. I love the humor, by the way.
$200 a week?
Should have volunteers.
Send me a bill.
But first of all, my name is Jeff Bray. This is my wife Cindy. We live at 170 Sunset Lane. So we live across the street from the property owners that want to subdivide their property. And you probably will see some information from some of the rest of our neighbors. But what we wanted to say to you is we are not supportive of the subdivision. And we've been in this neighborhood for almost 27 years, and it's a subdivision that's an older subdivision, and it's kind of a slanting hill towards a conservancy. And where we are, we're on the side of the road that is not a conservancy, and so the conservancy is across the road from us. This property once, for those that have served for a while, you may have heard or remember that this property once tried to build a second dwelling on it, and there was a lawsuit with the DNR because of the wetlands there. And so the original home was allowed to stay, and in the court information you'll see at some point. So we wanted to point that out to you, is that we're against this from an environmental standpoint. A question we don't know is the impact of the groundwater. That was one of our neighbors' questions. But basically, to build this one home across the street, which is fine, we required a lot of fill. The second home that when they subdivide, and you'll look at your maps, you decide on what you want. But I guess our position is that we are not supportive of the subdivision. It's a very wide subdivision. It's a very unique subdivision. The neighbors all get along very well with each other. We're just not looking to expand into this edge of the conservancy. And there were some neighbors, and excuse me, they might have replied, but they had concerns about how the water flow will change. I don't know if that's a big issue or not. That would be up for you guys to decide. So that's our position, more from an environmental standpoint. I don't know if you can talk about it or if you want to ask me questions, but that's our statement here. That's our position.
I can go through the land division. We had a number of comments that came in late last night, so I apologize. And I do very much thank everybody that did, you and your neighbors that commented. So I just made quick copies of those comments, and I apologize. This couldn't be in your packet. I just received them. So I'm going to pass those around. I hopefully flip-flopped them. So there's a group of 4 comments. If you'd like to take a look at those, I have only gleaned at them at this point, having just received them. So just keep that in mind. So, Ms. Chair, if it's okay, I can walk through the specifics of the land division and the staff report, and we can go from there with questions. Yeah, I want to thank the Braves for coming in and commenting. So right up front, I'm going to say that the land division, the certified survey map, came to us, and it has not gone before the town of Cedarburg, and we have been in touch with the town of Cedarburg planner and administrator on this. That's not completely unusual. Usually our approval and the town's approval is a little bit more simultaneous. In other words, usually they have, land division has gone at least through planning commission at the town level. Then it comes to us. Then it goes back to the town, both plan commission and common council for approval. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to,
Oh, they were one. Okay, I messed it up then.
sorry, yeah, I have flip-flop. There should be 4 letters incomplete from 4 different individuals.
All right.
Sorry about that.
For point of clarification, just
Yes.
the right context.
Yes,
So the package says 2 additional lots.
yes.
Is it a total then of 3? There would be 3, or?
Yeah, let me clarify that a little bit, because I think also that you're going to see that in some of the written comments from the neighbors. So what is being proposed is the CSM that is in your packet on page 35. It creates 2 new lots. And there's a little bit of nuance here, and I'm hopefully I can explain that. It's creating 2 lots. One is the existing dwelling and 1 additional lot. The reason that it says 3 lots is because this was subsequently land divided within the last 5 years. So according to our ordinance, if there is a successive land division which creates a total of 3 lots in 5 years, it comes to us for review. That's part of our ordinance. There was a previous land division that created probably the existing dwelling lot in the last 5 years, and this is a subsequent land division. So overall, in the last 5 years, 3 lots, or Yeah, 3 lots will be created. Right now, though, the proposal is to split an existing lot. And you count the parent lot as a new lot, even though there's an existing house on it. To boil all that down, I know it's a lot of nuance, but to boil all that down, there's essentially 1 new lot being created that's not currently built on. Okay, and I apologize for that, but that's how our ordinance is. And the reason for that, just so you know, the reason for that successive land division in 5 years is that somebody doesn't phase an entire subdivision by doing it, in successive years. It would, in order to just avoid review, right? So I'm going to land divide 2 lots this year. I'm going to do another 2 lots next year, another 2 lots next year. And they basically have the plan to do a subdivision. So that qualification is to avoid that kind of, not well-planned land division.
This is ostensibly to put another house on it?
Yes. So with that, I'll try and walk through quickly the staff report and also refer to the maps that are in your packet. Thank you, Karina.
You're welcome.
Sorry.
It's okay.
So real quickly, I do want to, so the way our staff reports, I know you guys are all new, or some of you are new to this. The way our staff reports are set up is the first set is just all the findings. So we just basically state what the department has received and reviewed. Okay, so in some instances, like we're going to hear this morning, we didn't have certain things to review. So it's to be clear about that. The second part is usually then the recommendation, and if a recommendation is made, then subsequent conditions, whereby if those conditions are never met, even though NRC approves it and those conditions are never met for the final CSM, they can't do the land division. So all those conditions need to be met, and some of you that have been with us before know that. So I'm going to try and go real quickly on the findings, and I'm just going to highlight the important ones. So we already talked about why the county is reviewing it and why it's in our jurisdiction as far as the number of lots in it being part of the shoreland area. So the shoreland is quickly and a little bit of education. The shoreland is defined by essentially 300 feet from a navigable waterway, stream, river, 1,000 feet from navigable pond, lake, or the extent of the floodplain. And in this case, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the floodplain. So that's kind of item 2 on the findings on page 47. Item 4 on the findings is about the floodplain. So there is significant floodplain on the property, as was noted in kind of the comments, but also in our staff report. It is a studied floodplain, which means there's a base flood elevation established. So what that means is that we know the elevation for that floodplain line. And if there are any plans to do filling, that elevation is critical. We do acknowledge that there is floodplain on the property, and that's subsequently in one of the maps, which I'll go back to talk a little bit about that further. We already talked about the lot creation. So another thing is that both the new lots that are being created, both the one with the existing dwelling and the new lot, are both under 5 acres, which is why we look at this. Item 6, quickly, findings again. So we need to, at the beginning of the staff report, it kind of they're broad, but it takes into considerations that NRC, you all need to take into account, as well as, when the staff prepares the staff report. So those are right up front, labeled A, B, C, D on page 47. Hazards to health, safety, welfare, proper relationship to adjoining areas. So we'll talk about that. Public access to navigable waters in the case where that's needed. Stormwater management and consistency with the comprehensive plan. So item 6 on the findings is that we do always look at the town's land use plan and the county's land use plan. And then sometimes subsequently too, we'll reference the zoning as well for the town, even though that is the town's zoning. In this case, it is consistent, which isn't totally to be unexpected because this is one lot residential. And so usually for land use, there's a range of acreages for a lot. So the exact acreages on a particular lot is usually defined by the zoning. And again, something the town would take up. So item 6, the finding is that basically it is consistent with our comprehensive plan, the county's comprehensive plan. It is consistent with the town's comprehensive plan. And the zoning right now would allow theoretically for that lot creation. But again, that's something the town would decide. I do want to mention the soils, which is 7 here. There are a lot of hydric soils on this piece of property, and you heard from the comments and some of the public input. And there is some notes about that because it can be difficult to load. So this would, as proposed anyway, would not be on, city sewer water. It's in the town, so it would need a septic system. Their amount is sometimes difficult depending on soils. So then, a holding tank could be allowed, but again, that would be a town and county decision. But holding tanks are at the purview of the local jurisdiction. So we do know that there's a lot of hydric soils and the Pouts aspects. Number 9, which I think will be critical, and I'll talk a little bit more about this, but the finding is that we have not identified that there are wetlands on the property. That was part of the Wisconsin wetland inventory mapping, but we did not get any detailed wetland delineations whatsoever, nor did we receive any concurrence from DNR and FEMA. DNR or Army Corps. So again, that was what was provided to us. Most times we do receive detailed delineations when the land division is going through. I'll come back to that with recommendations and comments here. We look at proposed access, item 10. It's off a town road, so again, town's jurisdiction. We usually identify that because some of our subdivisions will come off the county road and require county access permitting. And then I'm going to quickly, again, we didn't really receive any details on site grading, erosion control. That's not that unusual. Sometimes that comes at the time of development, not at the time of land division. But we do make note of these things. Sorry, I lost my point here. And then lastly, item 13 there, which is another piece I want to talk about, is generally look at environmental corridors and other natural resource areas that are listed there. So primary and secondary environmental corridors, if we would have any planned park and open space sites, natural areas, critical species habitat, etc. So in this case, I'll get to this with recommendations, but there is a significant portion of secondary environmental corridor, which you would expect with the wetlands and floodplains there on the property. There isn't per se a navigable waterway, it's largely floodplain, so access to a navigable waterway isn't required. So staff recommendation, and I will caveat that based on just the information we received last night and some of it which we didn't have, but it still would have been conditional. So we didn't find any objections to the land division based on our review and based on our criteria that we follow. So we are tentatively recommending approval. However, it is conditional on a number of things that were not provided at the time the CSM was submitted. And if all these conditions can't be met, regardless of your conditional approval today, the conditions must be met for the CSM. Just I wanted to clarify that. We talk about that successive land division in item 1 of the recommendation. That's what's happening here. There was a previous land division. But I did want to mention, so the FEMA floodplain was not put on the CSM. That would be a condition. It would have to be required to be put on the CSM. That refers to the map on page 40 of your packet. You can see there is significant floodplain. Any filling within that floodplain would have to get permitted through the Land and Water Department and follow FEMA regulations. There are a few areas that are outside the floodplain. So again, just on your map, that's the dark blue line or the royal blue line and the shading. You can also see that there's significant wetlands on the property based on the Wisconsin wetland inventory, but not based on any recent delineation. And then we also note, although it's not a regulatory item, we note, and that's in hatching there, the potentially restorable wetlands, because usually that corresponds to where there's hydric soils. So you can see that there's a significant portion of where the new parcel would be that is either floodplain, wetland, or potentially hydric soil. However, there is an area that potentially could be buildable outside the floodplain and outside the wetlands as we have the information. Again, we did not get a specific wetland delineation.
Andrew, just a comment on the floodplain.
Yes.
For lots that were created after April 13th of 2006, there's no filling of the floodplain allowed unless the Board of Adjustment would provide a variance. That was something we added to the ordinance many years ago. And regarding the wetlands too, oftentimes we issue the zoning permits for a lot of these projects, and when you have a wetland area that's encroaching on a buildable area, oftentimes, like Andrew mentioned, a wetland delineation is done. Sometimes the wetlands get bigger, sometimes they get smaller. But that's another critical item, is to have that wetland delineation done to know how much buildable area there actually is.
Yeah, thank you, Andy. I think that's really key, and why we always require it and why it's usually conditioned. And so just so you know, again, hard to see because the land division isn't on our mapping. But you know, it's that northern piece here. So we're really talking about a potential buildable area here between the wetlands and the floodplain. So there's, you know, potential, but again, this hasn't received town review. So they have setbacks, side yard setbacks, distance from the road, lot size, et cetera. And to Andy's point, we have a good idea where the floodplain is fairly accurate because we have that base flood elevation. And they would need to mark that in field. But the wetlands, we don't, because there wasn't a new wetland delineation provided.
Can I ask, have you spoken with the applicant to share some of these conditional requirements?
We've only talked prior to the staff report with, as far as, I let them know what items we had not received. And he was working through that process, noting that he was still, going to the town, et cetera.
Sure.
So a lot of times we'll take it up and make it a condition.
Yeah, no, I only ask because there seems to be, this is a very comprehensive list here.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we approve this, if he even wants what's left of what his original intentions
Agreed.
is, that he even wants to move forward.
So, yeah, agreed. And so sometimes he did formally submit the application, we're obligated to take it up.
Yeah.
And he didn't withdraw it, so we're obligated to take it up. But oftentimes, if he can't meet these conditions, he may either withdraw or, decide not, or not decide not to move forward with the town. But he did submit an application for review, we're obligated to get back.
Sure. No, I understand that. I just was
Okay.
curious if.
Yeah, I have not had any subsequent discussions with him since.
Yeah, because we respectfully appreciated your comments, reading these, and I think a lot of the stuff you addressed here today, pretty restrictive.
One thing,
If we were to approve this,
Yes.
I think it addresses a lot of the concerns.
I feel so, and thank you. And I just, two other things, the delineated wetlands, so that's not on there, that's a condition. The shoreland area needs to be marked too, because even outside the floodplain there, in this case there isn't, but there could be potential shoreland area that would require permitting. So yes. Lastly is the environmental corridor. We do have regulations against the number of lots that can be created in an environmental corridor as well. And so this does just meet that threshold. In other words, one new lot could be created under that, but we would also recommend that actual structure needs to be outside the environmental corridor. So those are all in there, as well as the permitting that Andy refers to and that comes before his department at the time, subsequent to land division, if this were to move forward. So with the information that we had, I do note that there is a potential buildable lot there according to our conditions, and that's why the recommendation is to approve, but with conditions and with further definition of that buildable area. If that makes sense.
So the town still has to obviously.
The town is still gonna review it. I've been in conversations with the town. They're, I think, both aware of, I'll forward these public comments to them. They're both aware of where we are in the process and you know, where they yet need to do review. So, and they specifically, as we always do, but they specifically requested that, you know, if moved forward with conditions, that our approval be conditional upon their approval, which is always the case. They just wanted to stress that. So I am still recommending approval because there is theoretically the ability to create a land division in the buildable lot according to our regulations, but it would be approval with these 16 conditions.
Andy, you want to say something else?
I just wanted to ask a question once. I was looking at the soils map and it's mapped as a Brookston soil, which is a rather wet type soil. Usually the basements tend to be real wet. I'm thinking like if a wetland delineation has not been done yet and one gets completed and it shows that whole area then is a wetland, you approved it, then they could proceed.
They couldn't because they would need to get DNR concurrence. And I will mention one of the comments that we were not aware of, but a previous landowner did try and do a land division. I haven't read the case, but there's actually a court case and it was based on the wetlands. It determined that there was not a buildable lot based on those wetlands. So
Can I just, like, is there a requirement for us to act on it this session?
no, you could table it.
And that would be my motion at this point, that it's not prime for decisioning, that we don't know the court case that's involved.
Yes.
We don't know that the landowner really would, under those conditions, would want to go forward with it. And rather than create a document trail that says, yeah, you can do it, except for, unless you meet these requirements, maybe we just wait until we clear some of those up and deal with this next time.
Absolutely, and you can do that, and that was the next thing I was going to mention is that you certainly could table it, and we can wait for the process to move
It
through
will come back to us.
it will come back to us.
Because right now, we're standing, if it's got all these conditions on,
Right.
and it gets through us, through approval, it's got to go back to town.
Right.
And we're talking possibly Board of Adjustments.
Yeah, potentially.
It's got a lot of hoops to get.
A lot of hoops, and just so you know, oftentimes, I won't say often, sometimes 50-50, we will get a land division, hasn't had a wetland delineation, they're in the process. That process can take a while, so sometimes we do take these up subsequent to receiving all that documentation up front. But in this case, I, agree with Andy's comments, which are documented in my staff report, as far as the hydric soils, the lack of the wetland delineation, et cetera. So I think it would be fine to also table and it would come back.
So Bruce, you take.
I'll make a motion to table it till next session, or till next meeting.
Okay, I agree with you. In a second. So we have a motion on the table, and a second. Kurt.
You would.
Okay.
Probably want a motion to postpone the item. Yeah. If you table things, then you have to take them off the table. It just creates a whole nother process. And then I think the only other thing would be the timing, is if you want to do it to the next meeting, or if you want to.
Do you want to do subsequent to town review and plan commission? Because that would be the next step.
The town doesn't need us to act before they can act.
Usually it's simultaneously, so no.
I just don't know if you want to bring it back to the next meeting if there's nothing to discuss. That's all. Which is fine. You can postpone it till the next meeting if there's nothing to discuss. There's nothing to discuss. Just trying to keep you under your 2-hour mark.
I might not want to injure on the town's reaction is we have like you said, we have a responsibility to respond to a
natural resource
constituent's request.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what the timeframes that will.
Understood. Yeah, I was trying to give you that. I don't know how else to say a date certain because there is a process here, and I don't know how quickly it'll move through the town either. So.
Tony, do you want to say something on this?
I was just gonna ask if we could, share the conditions in advance with, if they have already been, with the applicant, so that maybe they withdraw at the end of the day.
They were,
So, rather, I'm planning commission in Port, I've been on that for 7 or 8 years, and one of the things I was trying to do is like, if we're gonna deny or postpone or whatever, we give at least the applicant some direction, rather than just say it's been postponed, and let you know what we know, you know, because I think with this case in particular, with so much stuff here that they would have to comply with, it might just be better just to let them know and run it.
They do get the staff report as soon as it's completed, so he's had it for a week, he has not reached out, and partly, you know, there's a recommendation for approval with conditions, so theoretically, he's reviewed all that, but I will follow up with them after this meeting regardless of the decision.
I would keep my motion as postpone till the next NRC, with the idea that maybe we'll postpone it again, maybe not, but we'll have more information.
Okay, good. Okay.
One last comment, Mr. Chair. One thing I did not copy for you was the actual court case that we received on the wetlands. So I will forward that via email. It was a larger document and I just didn't have time to copy it all. So I will forward that via email so you have that documentation.
So maybe that's an opportunity at the next NRC to understand whether that would influence our decision.
And for me to do a little bit more research because I did not have that court case.
And it's, you know, kind of look at these comments late. It's a lot to digest.
Yeah.
Yes, and I appreciate it. First of all, I appreciate the comments. And I usually try and get any comments in the packet. It just was the timing and so that's all understood.
Okay, I'm gonna call the vote. You've got the motion to postpone till the next meeting. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carries.
Thank you.
Real quickly, I'll go back to the volunteer to serve on the Energy Action Commission. What does that mean?
There's one coming up, but yeah, I don't know that a date has been set yet. I'll see what I can find out while we're meeting her.
I'd be willing to do that, but I'm trying to, I'm retired and I'm trying to keep my third and second and fourth weeks. Traveling and stuff. I try to like.
Oh, we'd work around your schedule for sure.
Well, then I'll
Okay.
volunteer to be on that commission.
How's the energy?
University extension.
Sorry about that.
I'm a
Thanks for all your
planner.
help with the packets.
Yeah, I messed that up, I'm sorry.
It's fine. I'm a planner by training, so that's all interesting. All right. So you will have seen in your packet that every month we provide a report of from each of us as educators, some of the things that we're working on. Do note that these are always things that we have reported because it's always looking back a month. So just a note for those of you that are new. So I won't take up too much of your time. A bit of an update for some of you and then a new thing for the rest of you. We've been talking about the restrictive covenants project in Mequon, and we have a date. So you are all getting in the mail, hopefully on Monday, a postcard version of this. We are going to be holding this at the Weinberg Library on May 26th in the evening from 6 to 8. So for those of you that are newer, I did some research in partnership with Erica Turner from Bridge the Divide into restrictive covenants throughout Ozaukee County. So restrictive covenants are just they're legally enforceable agreements that limit how you can use a property, right? We're most familiar with these as things like the appearance of your house, right? You can only paint it from this palette, or your house can only be this tall or this big, or things like the way you can use a property. But in this case, these were racially restrictive covenants that said, quite literally, only white people can live here. Some exceptions, the chauffeur can be non-white and they can live here, but that's it. And so this research used the deeds that Ron was talking about, the digitizing that happened. Unfortunately, that started after this research had been done. So Erica and some of her volunteers literally dug through looking for keywords. And we found 6 subdivisions in Mequon and Thiensville that had this language, which means they were developed exclusively for white residents. So we did this research, we have this information, and our intent is just to share it with people so that they know this is some of the history. And so we are going to be sharing that information. We've continued to do just some additional digging, looking at what's some of the history of Black residents in Mequon. So we've been digging some of that up. A few more things came up that we found, actually last night, Erica found some more stuff in a different article. So just looking at things like Hank Aaron lived in Mequon, do people know that information? Just all kinds of pieces of history like that. So yeah, that's kind of what we've been looking at as one piece of the work that I've been doing. So we are excited to share that out. Again, it's just an educational thing to let people know. This is on your deed. It's not enforceable, but it's still there. So just let people know that it's there, offer them an opportunity to learn more about it. Rob, you know more about this because, yes. Yep.
Most people don't know about it.
Like you said, it's unenforceable.
Yeah. So we can't enforce it, but it's still there. So we're just letting people know that it's there. I know a few of you have read Color of Law now, which is the book that this research kind of was prompted by. And we've also been in touch in Milwaukee. They are starting a large project around this. So we've been in touch with the faculty at UWM who are working on this, which is all tied into Minnesota. Anyway, so we're tying into some of the other research that's happening and hoping to share what we have with them. Because the reason that we have them here is because they started in Milwaukee. So this started with the inner ring suburbs in which they're at. So yeah.
It's eye-opening. My question to you would be, what is, after sharing this, what's the desired outcome? And what are we trying to, at the end of the day, what is our desired outcome?
So with this work, what we're hoping to do is, one, increase awareness in people so they know it was there. We will be, we're putting together so we are not looking to alter people's deeds. That is an option, but we're not promoting that. But we will have a statement that people can sign that just says, I'm aware that this is on my deed. I do not support this, etc. So kind of give that opportunity. So it's really about working towards kind of that reconciliation stage of things. And just kind of starting the conversation with people. So that's really what our goal is with a lot of the work that we've done around this area, is to start conversation.
Yeah, I didn't mean to challenge you. I was just kind of curious.
No, I'm happy to share, especially as a lot of the work that I do doesn't really fit with the name of our committee. So you'll see that a lot with extension work, that we kind of do a lot of different things, but yeah. So, and this is our first in our Ozaukee Talks series for this year. So we have this right now, and then in the fall, we have 2 Ozaukee Reads programs planned. Through the Go Big Read program at UW-Madison, I was able to get 50 copies of the book from last year and the book for this year. So we'll be working with all the libraries. They will be hosting basically a book club at each of the libraries, and then we'll have a bigger discussion on each of them. So watch for that in the fall. But yeah, so that's kind of one of the bigger things that I've been working on.
If somebody received this information and did want to get this off of their deed, like, what is the process? Is that going to be part of the conversation? Or it can't be done? I don't know. This is a question out of ignorance. I don't know.
It is something that you could do, and we did talk to Ron about it, and his recommendation would be not to try to go through that, but it can be done. It is a legal process, and so it is not cheap. But yes, you can go through the process to have that changed. There is a project in the Twin Cities where that's what they do. But that is because the state of Minnesota adopted some language that allows them to do that.
Streamlined it a little bit. That's kind of where I was going, what can we do if somebody want that?
Yeah, so the other thing, if the county wanted to do something to acknowledge it, is that there could be a proclamation or a resolution that just kind of says something about it. That would be their option. But in Minnesota, that program, they have a bunch of lawyers that work pro bono. And this is part of their mission as lawyers, is to take that on and do that for free for people.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's eye-opening, and I'm just curious of once this information's out there, potential pitfalls that are out there.
Yeah.
If we are creating shitstorm, how are we gonna be able to react to it? I was trying to think that way.
Yeah.
Excuse my language.
All right.
Two things, back to the report. I like the format of the report with the regionalization of a lot of the functions, particularly in agriculture. It's not clear from the report, which I hate to be so parochial as to think only of Ozaukee County, but it's not clear from the report what is Ozaukee and what is not. So, as you're continuing to refine the report, or you can share this with folks who are interested in it. So that would be something I'd be interested in seeing. Is,
Okay.
What's happening in Ozaukee.
Okay.
And is it, mentioned before this is, so looking ahead, what it's worth, I think, for this committee to understand where you're going, and every now and then we get an update on that. What's not just happened in the last month, but what are we doing in the coming months? So thank you for the Ozaukee Talks piece of that.
Yes, and actually, so you will, typically for my work, because my work is kind of longer term. So if you look at my things, it'll say like development of and planning for. So thankfully they added that to because the report comes from the reporting system that we use. So thankfully they added that for us instead of just work that's already happened. Because most of my time goes into long-term projects. So if I was only telling you like, hey, I did this big thing, then you wouldn't know what was happening. So yeah. But yes, I will make a note about the regional ag and see if there's anything they can do. I don't know, but I will ask.
Congratulations to both Cindy and Jana for their recent recognition.
Yep, there'll be another press release coming out because all three of us.
Well, congratulations to you.
That was our Ozaukee Talks About Race conversations. So we're getting recognition at the statewide level for the work that they're doing. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, the first item is for a approval of a grant agreement with the Fund for Lake Michigan. It's for $50,000 for support of the Clean Farm Families Group. And we had asked for 30, and they actually came back and suggested we apply for 50. So, and they gave us 50. And this is to support the Clean Farm Families soil health initiatives, which are, getting cover crops in place, no-till, trying to not disturb the soil. We're trying to get the biology, the life in the soil functioning as it should, so that water can actually infiltrate into the soil, and so that the soil is healthy and you get the nutrient cycling the way it's supposed to happen, which helps in reduction of fertilizer and so on. The monies will support field days, workshops, conservation incentive practices, and it's all administered I serve as a collaborator for the Clean Farm Families Group. This money is for the Clean Farm Families. It's a board of people. We have roughly 10 farmers that comprise the group. We usually meet once a month. And when we have our workshops and so on, we usually have 70 to 100 people typically show up. Have you heard about our group before at all, or?
No.
Oh, okay.
I would encourage you guys to go to some of these soil academies or workshops and stuff like that. It's very.
You still got your fields, your test strips on 57?
Yes, we do. Mhm. Yeah.
I've checked them out a few times.
Yeah, and you know, they're starting to come into shape. It took us a while to get them where they're supposed to be. But we have 35-acre plot on along State Highway 57, just south of Fredonia. It's on the east side of the road. And we have corn grown, soybeans, and wheat generally in a rotation. The land is owned by Peter Eskra. But what we're doing is we'll have two plots of corn, for example. One plot is always no-till with cover crops, and the other plot of corn is conventional farming with tillage and no cover crops. We're comparing the yield, the economics of it. We're tracking changes in the soil, that sort of thing. And we work with USDA, Natural Resources Conservation Service, with some of that as well. So what we want to really show is that locally, no-till and cover crops can make a difference within our soils. And it takes time. Things don't change overnight either.
Okay, I'm looking for a motion to approve the grant.
Here.
Motion by Barb Jones, second by Bruce Ross. Any other? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, then probably go into this increase of revenue, that's the same thing, right?
Right.
Want to explain that real quick to them?
Well,
or-
basically for the budget then, since we're accepting the $50,000, we need to do a budget amendment to include the $50,000 into our budget. So this is an increase of revenue budget amendment.
Motion by Tony, seconded by Kurt. All in favor? Opposed? Number 3, the 2023 Clean Sweep Grant Solicitation Request.
Yeah, every year now, we put in an application to the Wisconsin Department of Agriculture to support our clean sweep effort. They're providing possibly up to $24,000 for the 2023 clean sweep. Typically, we don't get that amount. We typically get roughly between $12,000 to $15,000 to support our clean sweep effort. Clean sweep is to allow folks here in Ozaukee County to properly dispose of their agricultural and household hazardous waste. And we also accept used tires too as part of the event. We used to accept appliances and electronics, but the vendor that we've been utilizing doesn't work for them, at least for this year. Our next clean sweep event is actually Saturday, May 14th, which is coming up next weekend. It's going to be held at the Cedarburg Highway Shop. And it's kind of interesting. We typically get, like for our clean sweep, last year we collected almost 24,000 pounds of hazardous waste. And then we had roughly about 18,000 pounds of electronics come in, roughly about 300 tires. It's a real popular event. It's a lot of fun too. And a lot of people come through. So,
Should drive through at least once.
yeah,
It's worth the $20 or
right.
That's an
incredible operation.
They had that electronics one last weekend.
Yeah.
And I went to that, and that was very well run. Just kind of got in line, and you actually went through one of the sheds that it's a cow shed that was in the Fireman's Park side of it. It was nice. I was able to get rid of a bunch of old DVRs and electronics and no refrigeration unit. It was perfect.
I would make the recommended motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Bruce, second by Barb. All in favor? Aye. Be under reports.
Just a few quick items. On June 1st, there's an open house here from 4 o'clock until 7. And it's being coordinated by the DNR and FEMA for for the last last year or so, there's been a floodplain study of the Milwaukee River. And also there's been a floodplain study of coastal Lake Michigan. What they're planning on doing at the open house is allowing the public to come in and see the map changes, the floodplain map changes. And I haven't seen all the changes yet myself, but that's coming up June 1st, and we'll try to get the word out on that so that the impacted owners have an opportunity to know what's happening.
What was the time spot?
It's an open house from 4 to 7, and there's no formal presentation.
Here,
Now, I would imagine they're gonna have maps
I
set
assume
up.
this will be announced in the papers.
Yeah, I would hope it is. I mean, I'll reach out to the papers, we'll put it on our social media, on our website. That's coming up real soon too. And I know we've been talking about representation on various committees. I just want to mention that Southeast Area Land and Water Conservation Association, that's another group, includes Southeast Wisconsin, 7 counties. They're looking for representation on that committee too. They're looking for a president, vice president, secretary. I'm the secretary for the group now. Or I'm sorry, I'm the treasurer for the group now. I know you're all busy, but I wanted to at least put that out there. And then just,
Can we just go back to I happen to live on the river and part of my property is in floodplain, so my neighbors are concerned about that. So you mentioned that you'll try to let the affected landowners know through Facebook and public notification, or will through TV or radio, or will there be mailings or just public announcements?
what I would recommend is, that we do a press release to the papers. To do a mailing to each individual floodplain owner that we wouldn't be doing. And I don't even know if your neighbors are truly impacted, but I haven't seen any of that yet. Yeah, so it's social media and our papers, basically. If that's any suggestions?
No, it's a massive undertaking to mailers, so.
And this is
And it's not ours,
all
it's
results of modeling and studies and
this is owned
It
by
should be-
FEMA, it's a FEMA project, right?
FEMA.
Last time they scheduled several public meetings and broke them up by community because it extended so much when we redid all of floodplain mapping. So I don't know, there might be an ability to schedule additional meetings, because I think FEMA typically is like, one public meeting, the maps move on, so might be a chance to ask for additional public meetings. It was done in the past.
I should mention, we did close on the Edgewater, 1930 Edgewater property. So there's one more property there, 1936 Edgewater. And for the new members, there's a project that we have, it's called, it's through FEMA and Wisconsin DNR. We had a community of folks on Edgewater Drive. Edgewater Drive is on the Milwaukee River between Grafton and Saukville. And it's an area that floods a lot. All of the homes are in the floodway of the Milwaukee River. And that's the moving part of a flood water situation. And we had one or two homeowners come up to us many years ago asking for the county to get involved in this project. It's a project where we actually purchase the homes, and the homes are raised, and the area that is then preserved as open space in perpetuity. It ended up becoming a county park area called Country Oaks County Park. We worked together with the town of Grafton. Town of Grafton applies for a state grant called the DNR Municipal Flood Control Grant. Then we, the county, apply for a federal grant through the Wisconsin Division of Emergency Management. We put the two grants together. That covers the full cost of the purchase, the site restoration, so on. So, and we've purchased 4 properties thus far, and now we're on our 5th and 6th property. That's all I have. Oh, thanks.
Okay, anybody else have any questions for Andy? Then we will move on to planning and parks.
We have a half an hour. He has a half an hour. I'll stick around for the first one.
I've already done number.
Number one is done.
Number one is
No,
done.
he's done. No, I know the,
Oh, the mill, thank you.
yeah.
Discussion.
Yeah, thanks.
So we got this contracted bid for tree planting and maintenance services in Ozaukee County Park System.
Yeah, thank you. This is a function of several grants that we have received, and last couple of years, we've been able to go out to bid for contractual services to help us with tree planting. We do a lot of it ourselves within house, but we also do contractual work that is largely supported by the grants. So we went out to bid. You can see all of that, pulled the bid document, but we received 3 bids in the end. Dan Larson Landscaping, Property Solutions Contracting, and Johnson's Nursery. Staff is recommending the low bid. We just to clarify, we've split it up into a base bid and an alternate because we had 2 different grant deadlines. So the base bid was by the end of the year, all those trees need to be in the ground by the end of the year. The alternate, we had a little bit more time on, so that's why we split that up, just so you know. So the apparent low bid was Dan Larson Inc. Total bid price, both base and alternate, $65,234. And so our recommendation is to approve that base bid plus a 15% contingency, which we normally do, for a not to exceed $75,019. And again, you can see this is entirely funded by grants and restitution dollars that we received that way.
How many trees? How big?
So base bid, so these are all, but generally speaking, those that are defined by diameter, so everything that's not evergreen. So they're 1.5 inches or larger diameter. So they're usually, good height. They're usually 7 to 10 feet tall, but they're measured by diameter, so 1.5 inches. Those that are not measured by inch in diameter, we usually spec the height. So that'd be like cedars and tamaracks. And so those are usually 7 feet in height. We have had some supply chain issues, if you will, or just availability issues in the past. And so one of the things we try and do is if there is a change, one, we get a credit if it's a lesser, but we always try and stay with the native species we spec because we have marked specific locations for those trees. So we try to stick with the species, but sometimes we'll accept a smaller tree for that. But usually 1.5 inches, somewhere between 6 and 7 feet if not defined by the diameter. I'm sorry.
Numbers.
Numbers, yeah. So we had, overall, it was, the base bid was 102 trees. I think altogether we're at about 230. Did I give the unit price? Guess I did not. I can get that for you if you're interested. Actually, the unit price for us, we did look at that. I thought I put in the sport document, I apologize. The unit price has actually dropped from the last 3 biddings we did. So we are very surprised by that, actually. Normally our unit price is right around $320, $315 a tree for the specs I just mentioned. We're below 300. I want to say the unit price was about 290, 290-ish. I apologize. I thought they put the unit price in there.
Do they come with a warranty?
They do. So we get a 1-year warranty, which is a traditional nursery warranty based on planting. And so they're also responsible for maintenance and management during that first year. So that's a typical standard. Most of our grants, though, require a 3-year maintenance plan. So instead of, we have in the past had also a maintenance plan, but we found it to be very cost prohibitive for the contractor to give them, put that in the bid, have them do the maintenance for 3 years. It was actually quite cost prohibitive compared to what we could do. And also we weren't thrilled with the level of maintenance that actually was occurring, watering, tree strapping, staking, and so forth. So Over time, this is probably the, I don't know, we're several of these that we've done. Over time, what we found most cost effective and best for us is to put the first whole year on them, make sure survivability, but then usually our staff takes up years 2 and 3, which is usually the grant requirement at a minimum of 3 years.
It seems like if it can make it through the winter, right? And if it makes it winter.
Generally speaking, it's, that transplant shock is usually the first year, which is why that's kind of industry standard. But, again, if we don't do any maintenance on them, we can still lose them after that. Or there are special circumstances. We had some trees, won't cover special circumstances. We have some trees that are, planted in and around floodplain. Sometimes we get really high water and it's inundated for a long time. We try and pick the appropriate species and stuff, but sometimes we do have, loss due to that. And we had a flooding at Cover Bridge, for instance, and ice sheets took out a half a dozen trees, just because, we're trying to plant in some areas. They're a little more challenging. Was that okay?
Just wanted to make sure they were warranted.
Yes,
because
yeah, good question.
I've experienced, they don't all make it.
Yes, absolutely. And just real quickly, this is part of, an overall program we have. So we do big stock. We also do a lot of seedlings. And so actually next week, Barb, you're probably going to see a lot of activity at Hawthorne Hills Golf Course because we're planting about 20,000 seedlings out there. So we, it's a mix. We do that on purpose to get different age class. So the recommended bidder, and we have not worked with Dan Larson before, but he's the apparent low. Most of our other contracts have been with Property Solutions as of late. So kind of looking forward to working with another contractor on this work. Yep.
Motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Bruce, seconded by Barb. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. On to discussion items. Wabaka Dam and Button Factory site.
Yeah, and Andy's here too, which is great because he's had a long history on this property, longer than I even, and I think can talk to some more detail. But the reason this is coming in and why I put it under here is that I was approached by the current owner, Charlie Sheridan, about possible donation of the property. And yeah, I know it makes you, okay, well, whatever. Possible donation to the county. His specific vision is, kayak canoe access to the river, etc. For a county park, if you will. It is a beautiful area. It's right near where the old Wabaka Dam was taken out. It's a gorgeous area, and hence the mill and the Button Factory are all tied to that historic dam area. I did include the CSM, the most recent CSM in the packet, so you can kind of see the whole property. It's a long, narrow strip that is largely in the floodway of the Milwaukee River, including portions of the existing buildings, if you can call them buildings. So that CSM kind of shows the mill, which is in the photos. I'm sure Andy has lots better photos, but I took a few quick ones. So the mill is shown in the large building in the photos, and then also there's kind of the green and white building that was the old Button Factory. And you can see on the CSM that they're separated by a little bit of distance because in between there was the old raceway between the mill and the Button Factory. So the proposal that came before us, I'll just say that, and then I think it's important for you to get more background from Andy. But the proposal that came before us was the owner was interested in basically donating everything to the west of the mill building, including where they had recently done a demolition, hence the orange fencing in those photos. So there was a way station, some other structure there. So their interest was in donating everything to the west of the mill building on the CSM. And then also a portion of the mill building And again, the proposal was just that the county might help with the demolition of a portion of the building. And then the subsequent donation. There's a lot of issues with that. So we can talk about that. I don't think, and I had some further discussions, and I think what Andy will share with you too will enlighten that a little bit, but I don't think the county wants to be involved in that demolition. To me, again, just my initial thoughts and opinions is that that building has got some real structural challenges, and to think that somebody can take down half and not the other half is a little concerning, amongst many other issues. So while we'll talk about that. I'll let Andy address kind of where it stands in the floodplain, but I just want to say one last thing, which is just, so that's the proposal was, to donate a portion of it and get some involvement from the county on taking down a portion of the building. There are some other considerations. Part of the building has asbestos. There are some other issues, not to mention, what could be done in the future with this land and the buildings. And so I'll let Andy address that, but I just want to, again, bring it before you. So I think maybe if something slightly different will work out. I think that the area is beautiful. I think it would be a great addition. I think it's a great place for kayakers and canoers to access. So from that perspective, I think it would be a great addition, but there are some challenges, which I'll let Andy elaborate a little bit more on. Probably 20 years of history.
Yeah, but I want to stay on topic with the agenda.
Sure.
Sure. It's maybe like land donation type thing, but Charlie, many years ago, has purchased the button factory, which is the property to the east.
Number 6 on the.
Yeah, that would be building number 6. And just somewhat recently, him and his son had purchased the old Wabaka mill. And that's the building we're focused in on this morning. So, and that would be building number 1.
Yes, and the one that's in the photos on the subsequent page.
So there's been challenges at this site because a lot of that whole area where the button factory is in the floodway of the Milwaukee River. It's a structure that's been not utilized for many, many, many years. And in order to utilize that structure, it's got to meet the floodplain development standards now. There's a lot of challenges there. And that's all I'm going to say about the button factory. Then we have the old mill site. And
Take a look.
Yeah.
I believe the town of Fredonia,
And on your agenda, many, many times I've been involved.
I believe the town of Fredonia has issued an order that he raise that building now, right?
I did not hear that from Charlie. I did not chat.
That's my understanding. I could be incorrect on that. But there was a concern by the fire department and they suggested or ordered
It's
that,
all barred off. It's
The
yeah,
road is closed because
looks terrible.
the mill building actually hangs over the right of way, so that the road's actually closed because of the potential for.
so Charlie's looking for some assistance to demo just a portion of the building. I think that part of the building that's being required to be demoed, and at the same time, like what Andrew said, then he would donate that land to the county, that western portion, which is nice property. That's all I'm saying.
That's kind of expensive. Sounds like this is his cheapest way to get.
Yeah, I think there also might be, and Andy can maybe clarify, because again, I think it is part of the donation, but I think, and I think we need to learn more, but if the county were to be involved in the demolition at all, there's some restrictions on what he can invest in the building to keep it to meet floodplain standards, correct?
Yeah, that's another whole,
And so the demolition cost would typically go against that overall expense.
are you looking at the 20 to 50% equalized value type? I don't believe that would go because he's demoing, he's taking that away. But what Andrew's getting at is when you have a building in the floodplain, you can only put so much structural improvements into it. It cannot exceed 50% of the equalized assess value. There's no value hardly here.
Yeah.
To be able to structurally improve it. So there's a lot of issues here. Right now, he's wanting to donate some land here for the assistance of the county to take the building down.
It seems expensive for the county to take this on. It's a
Yeah,
donation, but.
I think there's some real challenges, you know, I wanted to go out there and meet with them, you know, just to see if this is something that, you know, we could do it in-house. Highways demoed buildings at River Oaks.
They do it for free though.
No, they don't do it for free. They don't do it for free, they charge us.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to see if that was even feasible. And in this situation, I'm a little concerned. I haven't had a chance to meet out there with Highway yet, but we did talk about it. But there's also some additional work that would need to be done. There's asbestos on the building.
Right.
That would need to be done by a certified person. I believe actually the county does have a certified person with asbestos, but again, whether you allocate that time, it would more likely happen by a contractor. So there would be some real expense in the donation as it's currently proposed. I was kind of, again, just my thoughts on it. He's done some demolition already. There's a weigh station, so there's some minimal underground stuff that you can see, the concrete pads and stuff. That would also need to be cleaned up. I think that could be in the purview of a donation. We could, you know, fix the concrete, the weigh station and stuff like that. So I don't know that the owner is prepared for this kind of, you know, donation, but you know, my feeling right now is that we could accept everything north of the mill building, but not deal with the demolition and take care of, you know, the other rubble and issues that need to be dealt with on that northern end. I'm a little concerned about, and I haven't even had time to seek out what a demolition would cost. So I'll,
My district. iPhone.
Well, it sounds like this has been going on for a while. This is the first time I've ever.
Have you ever been up there and seen this? My husband's mother worked in the button factory in about like 1919, something like that. In fact, I have some of the things from the button factory. But the button factory is basically almost sitting in the river.
It is.
Yes.
Is it?
Right, it's all in the floodway.
And then the mill itself hangs this way, and what they've all done to it, pitter patter this, it's been at the town of Fredonia's thing. No, oh, it's just horrid. And then there's a controversial issue as far as the people, who wants this, who thinks it should be that. It's just a can of worms like you can't believe.
I think
When I hear county getting involved, I can hear my phone ringing and saying, what are you going to do with this, Barb? And I'm like,
I think the county would be best served to have a comprehensive solution to the mill and the button factory and what Mr. Sheridan intends to do. Yeah, I think he's very constrained by the fact that it's in the floodway in terms of what he has the ability to do with the structure. And I don't think there's any, and in my mind, I would not recommend any scenario where we begin to start piecemealing things with the property owner, you know, because
What do you need from this?
this is just a discussion item, no action. I just wanted to bring it before you because you will probably hear more about it. You know, the landowner, I totally agree with Jason. I did talk to the landowner. We met on site. I talked with him at length. This was his proposal. I came back with the fact that, you know, maybe he'd be interested in donating the whole property, and maybe at that point there could be, as Jason pointed out, a more comprehensive solution to it.
you know, maybe there's an opportunity to donate buildings to the historical society. I don't, you know, in terms of providing him some tax relief, I don't know what his goal is. I mean, I think I know what his goal is ultimately, but I don't think he'll ever be able to accomplish it based on the limitations of where the property is situated. So,
Correct. Yeah, and we talked about that. We talked about the potential tax benefits to him. So
I just think rather than in for a penny and for a pound, we should be in for a pound and for a pound. If there's a, you know.
I think Charlie's, you know, I think he's looking for some sort of an answer. Yes or no, is the county?
yeah, I just put,
Forward and take part of that building.
Yeah, and I think he's well intentioned.
Yeah.
You know, and don't don't take my comments, to say that he's not. I think he's well-intentioned and he wants to work with us, but, there's some challenges here that,
Yes, this is just a discussion item. I need to have more discussions and stuff, and with Jason, but I agreed that, again, I just want to give this information to you. Nothing at this point. I think we need to see if there is a more comprehensive solution that can be arranged here. And that was why. So it's just an introduction.
I mean, I would ask, if Jason, you were talking about historical society, I would check if they even want this or.
I don't know if they would. I just don't know that, again, I don't know that the owner's vision will ever align with what he's able to do because of the fact of the way the property is situated on the river.
If you're focusing in on the button factory, then he has that now on the National Historical
Yeah.
Register. So what that does is he could actually, he could restore that building back to the button factory in regards to the fact that he's got to meet the historical character.
You gotta own a button factory,
But what he's
Yeah,
done.
right, well, yeah.
highly lucrative.
But he talks about residential, commercial, because an office, you can't entertain that, it doesn't.
No, it
You
doesn't.
can get, yeah.
I mean, otherwise you'd have to restore the mill as a mill.
And in the meantime, the foundation of the, and I don't want to go on too much with the button factory, that's kind of not on the agenda so much, but to give you the whole big picture, the button factory, the foundation of it is, it's ready to, it could buckle and all fall into the river if he doesn't take some action.
It just feels like there's not a county role here right now, other than listening to some ideas that he might bring forward, but how much energy do you want to put at this? My perspective, very limited.
Right. I think it was I guess my feeling is, again, a more comprehensive approach to the whole property needs to be done. And that's kind of what I told Charlie when I met with him on site. He's not there yet and he has some of his own desires, but beyond that, I agree with you, Supervisor Ross. It's just, I don't know how much more we can do.
So I get this right. What he's saying is west of the mill is what you're talking, the possible donation.
That's what he would like to do right now.
But east of the mill, where the button factory is in and the part of the mill,
I'll
that
say-
still wants it?
Yeah.
Because he's at the town of Fredonia board. He has done all kinds of things to those buildings that they didn't approve of. I mean, just the looks of them, to go up and take, and ideas that he's had. This has been going on for 5 years, maybe more.
Yeah. I mean,
And it's going downhill. The whole
he's got some real
property.
structural issues right now. He's got leaking roofs. And so that's going to be an issue real soon.
Now, this has been going on in our office for
More than that.
A decade or more, yeah,
15 before I was even upstairs.
it's been a long time. I mean, I've been dealing with them for 10 years.
So I guess maybe just, I did want to introduce it because I figured you'd be hearing about it shortly if you haven't already. And I guess second to that is I thought maybe we can have, one more sit down and talk about, what would be a comprehensive approach and see if he's at that point. Because when I met with him in the field, he wasn't, but I think he needs to hear from all parties about that and then see what that shows. If the whole site were donated, I think it could make a wonderful area, both from a recreation standpoint and a cultural historic standpoint. But short of that, I think there's some challenges.
If we were talking the whole property, but not just the west of the mill, that would be a totally different story. And if we had it all, we'd have to comply, obviously, with the state as far as historical. And
Yeah, I
all
don't
that.
know what the challenge is.
It's a beautiful spot, but what's there is terrible to work with. And we're not even talking that. We're talking just west of the mill.
Right.
And just part of it,
Yeah, part of it.
Okay.
So,
All right, well,
Not good.
more to come into
we
it.
continue.
Thank you. Yes.
Move on to the next item. Update on limestone gorge. Sorry, this will.
So, So this is a little bit also of an update on construction work. Lions Den Nature Preserve Pavilion is going really well. There were 2 additional change orders. They're fairly minimal, but they were included in your packet and I will explain them. One was for replacement sinks and hand dryers. We had spec'd a all-in-one, or our architects did an all-in-one unit. It had a sink and a hand dryer built in and all that, and it was commercial standard and stuff. Unfortunately, supply chain issues and also the fact that the company kind of decided to stop making that model meant that we could no longer get it. So this is to go back to maybe a more traditional separate sink, separate hand dryer, separate soap dispenser situation, and that amount that was in your packet of change order 6, which is $710, is the balance. Basically, it's going to cost us a little bit more for that change. And these, by the way, these were approved to keep things moving with the building. So this is information, and I did talk to Jason about all of these. And then the next one, also at Lions Den, change order, was for the garage door. Again, another supply chain issue. They couldn't get the one that was spec'd and ordered. So what they did is they're buying a standard, if you will, garage door and then painting it to match the color we had chosen. So again, that's a small change order of $337. So those were the 2 change orders out at Lions Den, the 2 additional that we hadn't talked about previously. Again, we're still in budget, still under the contingency, still for those of you that were here last committee meeting, still in line with what I talked about, which is overall, we're expecting between Cover Bridge and Lions Den, $60,000 that will then get applied to our Hawthorne Hills maintenance building. So savings underneath budget. And then the other one, which I only had 2 of the change orders, and that's what I was just looking here on my phone. So 2 of the change orders in your packet are for our H.H. Peters youth camp remodel. So that was started with a grant we received. The old CBDG funds rolled over to do ADA projects, and this is the ADA upgrade of H.H. Peters. So I'll try and summarize. So there actually are 4 change orders. I did not have the other 2 in time for the packet. I apologize, but I'll itemize them here. So what happened with all these change orders with our H.H. Peters remodel is that when we got into it, the contractors got into it, particularly plumbing was the first one. But we realized, and we had full plan sets for the building and stuff, but still apparently not obvious. All the utilities ran through a 6-inch concrete poured floor, which I guess was typical back in the 60s. But traditionally now, everything is run in the ceiling, easier access, you can get to it. It also meant that the locations were fixed. So the bulk of change orders 1 and 2, which were not in your packet, are a whole bunch of utility work that needs to be done. We had to actually bust up the concrete floor to get access to the utilities to be able to move them. We actually had to redesign the shower system and the bathrooms that we had originally designed because of the location of the utilities and the need to move them to make space for the ADA. So it turned into a big thing. And when we broke the concrete floor, they subsequently also found that some of our HVAC piping was rotted in the concrete. So needless to say, there's a lot of utility work that was unexpected, and change orders reflect that. So change order 1 and change order 2, again, not in your packet, but change order 1 was $10,914. Change order 2, $11,115. That was largely to deal with that whole utility issue and to reconfigure the showers. So change order 2 dealt specifically with showers. When they got into it, the mixer, the shower head. So we were intending to leave the showers untouched, just make them ADA accessible, but leave them untouched. What happened is when the plumber got in there, the pipes were bad. the mixer, the fountain were historic, he said. And so there was a whole lot of problems, and the way they were configured is the showers, it was an old community shower, right, when H.H. Peters was built, so the showers were in these corner units, which apparently they don't even make now, but they were in these corner units, and it gave access kind of more of a community shower setting. We were gonna move that, with the redo to make it ADA, that didn't work. So we redesigned it, so we're actually putting ADA shower inserts in, and we're giving up one shower on both the men's and the women's bathroom. But needless to say, this is all a result of the plumbing and the fixtures and what we thought we were gonna be able to keep and what was recommended, we don't keep. And again, it all goes to the ADA fix. So that's why significant change order there of about 22,000 for change orders 1 and 2. And then change orders 3, which you do have in your packet, was we did not have ADA compliant toilets. So this is to get the ADA compliant toilets for that. That was a $800 change order. And it was thought we did. And then the other one is wall mount utility sink. That was to accommodate the plumbing changes as cost effective as possible. And that's another $854. So I did talk to Jason, to get these moving and approved. I had originally told Jason that it was going to be a $27,000 total change order. It actually came in at 23,000, so not quite as bad as I originally anticipated. We had 14 in contingency, and then we have another 6,000, so about 20,000 from another capital project that we can use. So we have about 20,000 to go towards the $23,000 change order, so about $3,000 short at this point. And we're hoping we won't have any other additional change orders out at H.H. Peters. And there was, if you recall, also going back to the original budget, there was already a county contribution to supplement the ADA grant. The grant was for $108,000, and our bid was more. So there was already a county investment. So from the capital, so there'll be an additional. Well, the net would be an additional 3 above and beyond what we had spec for our contingency. So that's that. But having said that, it seems like things are going well now at H.H. Peters as far as getting direction and being able to get in there and bust up the concrete and re-pour, stuff like that.
And there will be no more change orders. I heard it here.
I am hoping for no more change orders.
Oh.
Hoping for no more change orders.
All right, let's move on to the next one. Number 3.
Yeah, 3 is just our capital ecological projects that I just wanted to give you a real brief summary. For some of you that haven't been with us at previous meetings. So I just talked about our H.H. Peters ADA remodel and Lions Den Gorge Pavilion, and we subsequently are wrapping up the Pavilion bathrooms at Covered Bridge. That was, again, we extended their deadline. It was supposed to be done by the end of April, but as you all are probably well aware, we've had crummy weather. And the only thing remaining at Covered Bridge, they did finish the bathrooms. They were able to put the epoxy on the floor, put in all the partitions. So the bathrooms are done at H.H. Peters. The water is on. We Energies finished all the electrical. Those are some of the remaining things. But the last remaining item is to paint the exterior of the building, or stain paint. And that could not have happened. Cannot happen until it's above 45 degrees at night. So we're waiting for weather, but we're hopeful that we'll get that soon. Hopefully it looks like next week, and then Covered Bridge will essentially be done. And just as a reminder on that, our staff is going to be doing the landscaping there. And so we'll be working on grading, putting in a path, and some seeding both. We're going to have a small area of native prairie, and then the rest will be lawn, grass, as well as probably some tree and shrub planting down the road. So we'll be working on that as well. My hope, our need is our first reservation for the Covered Bridge Pavilion is June 1st. And so, I'm hopeful we can finish it up by middle of May or so, make sure everything's up and running.
And my question, I knew we were pushing up against some reservations, so. that's-
Yeah, we're getting close. I have a few other items here under this too. I'll try and go quickly. We awarded our H.H. Peters multi-purpose maintenance building contract. So that work has started. We got all the documentation back from the contractor. And we're working through permitting right now we've talked to the town and they deferred to the state, and we're working on the state building permits. And we're also working on DNR permits for stormwater erosion control. All going well. We got preliminary permits from the state on the building, and we got preliminary approvals on the DNR permits. We had to provide some additional stormwater calculation work. But all is going well there. The contractor was hoping to get in there at the beginning of June. And so we're still hopefully in line with that. We got a county shoreline permit as well. We'll need a subsequent one when the building starts, but that's all in the works. So things are going well there. And on that note, last committee, we approved to submit a DNR stewardship grant to actually build out the public part of the building, the interior. And we submitted that grant. And actually, when we talked to the DNR liaison that accepts those grants and stuff, that she's not the final decision or vote, but she thought it would be very competitive and said that they've funded a number of these recently. So, and she liked the idea that it's this multi-purpose building and that there's a public aspect. So that's going really well. We are starting to gear up for the restoration of Mineral Springs Creek here in the city of Port Washington. We met with the Public Works Director the other day. We've gotten all our DNR permits. We're waiting on our Army Corps permit. It's going to be a large project over multiple years, grant funded, but it'll also really, and we met with the city about this, but it'll really resolve some issues for the city as far as their protecting their public infrastructure. There was a main large sewer main that was exposed in past erosion and stuff, and coordinate with all landowners. They're really glad that we're able to be moving forward. So hope at some time you can share a little bit more about that project. It's a good one. We received we're finalizing a very large $400,000 grant for some of that work along Mineral Springs Creek. Vermont staircase down at Vermont County Park, that's going well, but there has been a little setback with the contractor was out there working. So I think I reported last time, but so they have 95% of the staircase built, and then they had temporary. So if you recall, the design is that they have anchors up top. It's all cabled, each section individually, etc. And they had temporary cabling, and meaning that the anchors were put in because it was frozen ground, so they had to wait for the ground to unfreeze to get the anchors in. Well, unfortunately, as the ground unfroze and made it available for them to put in the anchors, one of their temporary situations, which was basically they were tied off to an old stump that we had, an ash stump. The stump actually pulled off, and so they lost pressure on that cabling, which meant one of the sections shifted a little bit because of that, because of the rains we've had, etc. So they're working. They didn't consider it major or anything, but they do need to re-level that platform, and then they need to redo that. And now it's going to be put on the permanent anchors because they can get those in now that it's thawed. So not terrible news, but a slight setback. We're finishing work there, but they are putting in all the anchors at this point. So that's moving forward, but it's like delay. They were hoping beginning of June, but I'm going to say more like July, and that's without us being able to get in there. We wanted to finish some other things like our paver brick pathway for the fundraising. So I'm going to say midsummer is when we hope to open it. Probably not before July. Then you heard me briefly mention in the summary of our department that we have a number of fish passage projects. We're working on a big one with the town of Saukville right now on Mole Creek. we've had a lot of investments in Mole Creek. This was a classical perched culvert that was totally impassable. It was about 1.5 feet above the stream bed. In fact, I was really even wondering how that culvert was functioning. It was on Center Road. And so we're doing a full replacement, entirely grant funded. Highways was out there yesterday and today, so we're doing a local force account, being coordinated very closely with the town on that. The road closure was less than a half a day. So the culvert's in, it's passable, but we still have touch-up work and stuff to do. But that's a really nice project. And then you also heard me briefly mention that we have the Milwaukee Community Service Corps for helping us with some of our invasive species work this morning and also some tree planting. That'll continue all summer long. And in June, we're expecting a large AmeriCorps group. They're going to stay with us for a month at H.H. Peters. So that's our deadline for getting H.H. Peters done, is when AmeriCorps comes to stay with us, again, to do invasive species and tree planting. So that's it in a nutshell.
Talk about the Clay Bluff Cedar Gorge acquisition.
Yeah, so I can mention a few things. One is, as you all know, and we talked about, one of our grants was expiring at the end of June. So we've done the formal process, going through a scope and an extension for that grant. And so that's all been submitted, positive feedback from Fish and Wildlife, et cetera. At this point, given the review and everything we discussed, we're not anticipating any problems with extending that to the end of the year. But that extension was based on the fact that we've received recently these EPA funds that you recall I mentioned, a $450,000 grant from EPA to go towards the acquisition. So we needed EPA basically to tell Fish and Wildlife that yes, the funds were tentatively awarded, et cetera. So if you extend our grant, so the EPA funds, that timeline looks like we're hoping, fingers crossed, award at the start of the state fiscal year. So those EPA funds actually come through the DNR. So they're actually distributed by the DNR. So the state's fiscal year is June to July. Anyway, suffice it to say, they would be awarding it in next fiscal year, which would be July 1. So that's kind of the last grant that we had coming into for the acquisition, and those dollars helped us get an extension on the Fish and Wildlife. And we're working very hard on the fundraising aspect, and been working very closely with the land trust on that and moving forward. And the last part is we have, with all the federal agencies, because there is a timeline to get the funding to be available at closing, we started to initiate the process to have that funding available for closing. So that's kind of a lengthy process, but we're going through that last remaining due diligence so that if we can get there on the remaining dollars, that all the federal funds will be ready to go. And so we're targeting that process, because for Forest Service, for instance, it's a minimum of 60 days to have all that due diligence wrapped up and funds at closing. So we've initiated that process with all our federal partners at this point. The idea that we'll be able to work with the land trust on needed. That's where we're at.
Okay, moving on to number 5, volunteer work days in the Ozaukee County Park System.
Yeah, I mentioned this. I just have been part. We got contacted by Keller Williams Realty house to home team. Every year, this realty firm actually tries to do a work day. They have between 30 and 40 volunteers. They basically take the day off, and it's a volunteer contribution day. So it was real nice. They approached us because they were really interested in the work that we were doing. So they are going to be working at our new Uleo Creek Nature Preserve Park. And so they're going to be doing invasive species work, tree planting, and garbage pickup down there. And they're super excited about it. They liked actually the location and things like that. In your packet, I included, we did a Milwaukee River Milwaukee Riverkeeper does an annual cleanup around the whole watershed. This year they sponsored one at Wabadonia Park though that I was thrilled to have, and I was out there. It's a great day. We had 18 volunteers and about the same number of bags of garbage. The park itself was really clean, but the road along AH was where all the garbage was. In fact, I was one to find a large table that had been discarded out the side in the right of way, which ultimately ends up in our park. So that was a great thing. Milwaukee Riverkeeper sponsoring. Uleo Creek Partnership is working with us on an invasive species grant and management out at the Uleo Creek Nature Preserve now. And then ATC, we recently had a tree planting event sponsored. We had tentatively had it for Earth Day, which was Friday, but it poured rain, so we quickly shifted it to Thursday. It turned out to be a great day, and there is some photos in your packet on that. We got a significant number of large trees planted. It was really really nice event. So yeah, that's all. That stuff's in the packet. Oh, last, I just wanted to say too, we had a celebration of National Trails Day, and there were some events actually down in Mequon, but all along the trail. We're also running kind of a contest just to get people out on the trail, a selfie contest. They shoot a photo of them with selfie on the trail and send it to us, and then we're going to kind of do a drawing for prizes. We have some kind of these hydration backpacks to give away and stuff. So that was a great day. A lot of stuff going on.
Okay. Number 6, Lake Michigan Bluff Erosion Research and Outreach.
Yeah. So we've been partnering for quite some time on research for bluff erosion with these partners. Recently, the Wisconsin Geologic Natural History Survey and UW-Madison Geology and Coastal Management received a large grant to continue that study. So they're going to be doing some detailed work on erosion at Lion's Den. If you recall, they've already done some of that work for Vermont County Park. And then previous work also with the UW-Mass Geology did some work out at the Clay Bluffs property. So we're collaborating with them on this large grant. We're one of the partners. Obviously, they'll be doing some research. So there is a graduate student, and she actually moved to Port Washington. She's going to be working on this research for the next 3 years. Her family actually is from Port Washington, so it's a really nice fit. A great person, but she's going to be helping us do some erosion. So if you see somebody down there with a remote controlled boat and other scientific equipment, that's the graduate student, and we're going to be supporting her research on that. It's going to be some near shore erosion and some other things that affect erosion, and I think it'll be great information as we move forward. And then another item that just came up, there was a significant slump here in the city of Port Washington, in Port Washington too, but this one was in Mequon, north of Concordia. And our consultants that we worked with on the groundwater study of Vermont and stuff approached us about doing some research with that block failure. And we have some collaboration and data that we got previously from UW-Madison. And so we're going to try and wrap that together with a project, and the firm GZA, who we worked with on our groundwater study, is willing to donate a significant amount of time, and they're actually also wanting to test out some new technologies. So I'm going to try and get GZA paired up with our other partners on some of this work, and I think all of it is going to a better understanding of that shoreline erosion and what steps we can do to address it, and also just make people aware. So all good stuff. So that's what that's about.
All right, let's move on to management. Number C, management financial informational reports.
Yeah, I would entertain any questions. I will just say that the weather has made it for a poor start in the parks and the golf courses. We're quite a bit behind in the golf courses. We're hoping to make up as soon as the weather turns. It's predominantly been weather, and same, frankly, with our disc golf has been down fairly significantly. again, primarily because of the weather. So we hope to make that up, but that's where we are today. So other than that, if there's any questions on any of the finances or anything, I'm glad to address that.
As a new member, I just appreciate the package put together, and I want to say, appreciate the historical reference. Year to date comparison, so it's a frame of reference, so thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And if there's ever any information that you feel like you're interested in, please let me know. I'd be glad to talk with you further about that. And for the new members too, annually we revisit the rates and everything for the golf courses. So we've done that for this year, but that's a thing we do every year.
I'm glad to see Mel's doing the promotional on the river run. I mean, in our area, that's been, that we, years ago, that was really something, and now that it hasn't happened. Well, this is first annual, so I'm hoping that'll be a good day.
Yeah. We too, we're really glad to be working with them. They're going to be out of Ozaukee Park. And so we've been coordinating with them, and we're really looking forward to that event too. So.
And the water's high enough now.
It is now.
Not in August, but no.
Yeah, been good water level. That's all I had unless there's questions.
I guess the next meeting will probably be June 2nd, right? Yes, with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Barb made the motion, Tony made the second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Thanks, guys.
Well, it's really good that Fish Fest is over right now.
It is. I was just talking to Andy. Actually, saw him last night. And so far so good. We're gonna go down there and do some seating and tighten up the road.
Otherwise, if you want to do it now, all right.
Yeah. Sign is better than the old.
I'm
I
very
think
busy.
it's gonna be more sustainable. So,
Thanks.
This went a little long. It's like old times.
Division.
Yeah, intros and all that stuff.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it takes Andrew like 30 minutes to take a mark.
Today it did.
I told him it was him that made them long.
Not always, not always.
Sharon's got to crack the whip.
Yeah. I think the land division was kind of confusing about some information.
Usually a little bit more, streamlined and stuff, so anyway, I appreciate your patience and working through that.
Because I mean, if there's a DNR study on it.
Yeah, I'll do,
Probably, yeah, up near my office somewhere.